right now.
Hell yeah.
I've got total
Hell
control.
yeah.
You're in
Are
the
we live yet?
soy pills world now.
Fuck yeah. Wait,
Yes,
so who's
we are
going to take on the... if you're doing the actual stream, does that mean Soy Pill is the guy, or is Hutch because he has the greatest seniority?
I think
Dude,
Hutch
Soy
has the
Pill, I
greatest
feel like he's got the riz, man. not that I want to pass the buck. If you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. But.
I think you have a very strong lead that you're going to take on this next topic, but I can lead into it because what we're going to do first here is we're going to talk about this chorus story, right? So I think you've got a lot of opinions on this, Hutch, and I'll let you lead the discussion, but I will introduce. Guys, hello, everyone. This is Lib and Learn. -1. Josiah is quitting Live and Learn forever. He's never coming back. No, he is taking Labor Day off. I'm sure he's spending time with his family or, receiving some sort of dark money deal and reworking it. So he can't be here today, but I am temporary guest hosting, even though I'm also a co-host. So technically I'm always a host. But with us, as always, as every single episode, are Pisco Hutch and IRI. Welcome, everybody.
How we doing,
What's up,
folks?
boys? How's your weekend, guys?
Real good, man. A lot of wonderful times were had. Had some ice cream. Everything was good.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to go on stage in front of 8,000 people, join the Offspring for a show on Friday. That was cool.
No way.
Wait,
What
what?
the hell, bro?
Hold on.
8,000 people.
Let's dive into that a little bit. How often does this happen?
Last time we did it like a decade ago. This time I got hit up by the lead singer. I've been friends with him for a while, and once in a while we just talk, and he's like, "We have a show coming up in LA in a few weeks. We think it'd be really fun for you to come on stage in the outfit." And so they made me like a custom one because I have the original, but it's in a frame. And so I just came out and came on stage, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
What is that
That's
like? Is it just like a
sick.
fat adrenaline rush or what?
I mean, it's a whole experience because like I go to the like his house and I get to like hang out with the rock stars, and like I rode with him in a bus to the venue, and we get to talk, and then you're backstage and it's just like everything you can imagine, and then it's just a big rush getting on stage and being in front of all those people. It's cool.
It's a full body high.
Yeah, I gotta be careful. I'm getting old, so I got to stretch and stuff, warm up.
And it's
But I think it's a
probably-
trip for the audience, just because it's like they
Sure,
don't
yeah.
expect to see a character on screen, like from screen to stage,
And it's probably like a ton of like millennials and Gen X, right? So they probably remember that video, huh?
Yeah, and everybody told me I look the same, which is so weird. They're like, "Have you guys been keeping that guy frozen and not letting him age, or what's going on?"
That's a compliment, bro. That's a big compliment, man.
Wait, how old are you? Alright?
I'm 45,
Shut the fuck
but just if people don't know, I played the
up. No,
character
are you
of
serious?
the
Are
fly
you
guy.
45?
I am 45. Yeah. When
No fucking way.
when I was
What?
18, I was started my acting career, and I did it for quite a few years, and I got this role as the pretty fly guy in the Offspring's Pretty Fly for a White Guy. So that's what we're talking about.
You do definitely look pretty young.
I can't
Like
tell
you've
if
aged
you're
a little
gaslighting me
bit since
now, 'cause
that
I've only
video.
known you a few weeks.
Yeah, my face is a little heavier. I was looking at like myself in the outfit, and definitely look a little older, but it's still pretty close.
Oh my god, that is you. What the
Isn't
hell?
that sick,
Yeah, bro.
dude? When I first found out, I was like in rejection mode. I didn't want to believe it, but it was true. And as I come to grips with it, it's like it's sick that they still have a relationship with you, man.
Can I share this?
Yeah,
on
I
screen?
really
Let's
cherish
see
it
this.
because I'm a fan of the band, and I always was, and so it's just cool to
This
be able
is-
to hang out with them.
Yeah, look at
This is
this,
IRI.
yo.
Hell
bro.
yeah.
Look at it, bro.
I genuinely didn't believe you. I didn't think I was like, you look like you're like 32. That's wild. You look
No, I
great.
thought he was
just
trolling
making
too.
that
This-
shit up.
Yeah, I thought he was fully trolling the first time he told me that, and then I looked it up on stream. I was like,
Well,
"What
so did
the
I, but
fuck?" Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the
crazy.
hell? Awesome.
All right, boys.
Well, that was fun, man.
Let's dive into some topics. There's some memes going on with Trump dying. We got some controversy with this chorus, what have you.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's do the chorus thing first, because I think you're gonna have a lot to say about it, Hutch. I've
Yeah.
seen you're parading yourself all over Twitter, and I'm furiously liking all of the tweets because I just think your opinions are so objectively correct.
I'm just pissed. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just pretty pissed about the whole thing. Brian Tyler Cohen, I would consider him to be one of the like the stronger voices in the space. He's somebody that avoids drama. I've never seen him like denigrate other creators. immediately after the election, he was speaking a lot about the asymmetry in alternative media between conservatives and liberals and progressives, specifically with funding. He was pointing to ventures like TPUSA that pull in, $80 million a year of private funding. And they're going out there, and it's hard to argue that TPUSA is not having an impact when we look at these demographic shifts. Are they responsible for all of it? Probably not, but I think it's naive to suggest that what they're doing is not having an impact. And so then you have someone like BTC who, as you were speaking to Pisco, I saw you were commenting on it. I watched a little bit of your conversation with Aaron. BTC was Brian Tyler Cohen was pretty open about what this thing was like before it was made. And you have this guy that's like, he didn't even take a salary. Like he was just doing it for the love of the game. He was devoting ostensibly like hours of his week, devoted to a program that was meant to mentor, fund, and uplift like smaller creators. Like he actually like walked the walk in a way that I haven't really seen anybody else in the space do. And then this article comes out, and I'm just curious to hear, I'm actually especially curious to hear what you have to say about this piece, because I think you might be more familiar with contracts and these sorts of things. So why don't you open this conversation up with your sort of summary of the article? Did you have any issues with it? Yeah.
Well, let me start with what I take to be a genuine critique, and one that I think is worth talking about, which is I think there should be a social norm among commentators to disclose revenue streams related to their content. I don't think that that's a bad thing to point out. And I said on my Twitter that I think that it's a mistake to the extent that they weren't disclosing that they were receiving funds from Chorus. I take that to be a genuine mistake and something that should be rectified. I don't think that it should be overstated or we should be bent out of shape about it, but I just think as a social norm it should be disclosed, and that applies to any kind of funding stream related to your content, just for appearances, and so there's no appearance of a conflict of interest, or that people have access to potential biases, and so it's an even playing field. I don't say anything more than that, but other than that, I kind of find the discourse around the piece and the piece itself to be riddled with falsehoods, disingenuous narratives, and frankly, I find it pretty reprehensible, or at least some aspects of it. I'll give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about.
Before you go into this, Pisco, I do want to ask, just on principle, as someone who has received now financial help from Progressive Victory one time, and they might give me more later in the future, but they were helping me out. They gave me some money so I could get some more editing equipment so that I could edit on the road while I was with Rokana, who they also connected me with. And my question is, I don't think I've ever made a video that's like, hey, just FYI, everyone, Progressive Victory gave me some money for a laptop so I could edit. But if anyone asks, I'll say it. What's then the decorum? Like every time anyone decides they want to, help me out, if it's greater than a super chat, I have to then declare that someone is helping me out, even if it has nothing to do with my ideas or a video being made.
I think you're probably right that there's some de minimis threshold. But I think that in the main, this is not something that you're going to disagree with, other than maybe some de minimis programs or some one-off super chats where there's not an expectation of return obligations, right? A super chat is like a donation, and the money is sent before there can be a return obligation. But a contract, which this is a contract, is bilateral, and there are obligations that are being put forth and expectations from the other side as well. And so, I would maybe put some de minimis threshold, but I don't think in general you'd have a disagree with the social norm. So I'll just ask you directly. If I were being paid by Breaking Points for my appearances, don't you think that that's something I should disclose? If I had financial relationships with Breaking Points, or hell, with fucking The Culture or with Tim Pool, don't you think that's, as a social norm, that's something I should disclose?
It depends. If you're being compensated, for example, Tim Pool paid to fly me out. They paid for my hotel.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Right, I know, but I'm saying those things. I've never said those as I felt obligated to. It's just of course. And some people don't, by the way. Some people, Rokana's team didn't pay for me to go with them. I had to do all that out of pocket. So it's okay, well, sometimes I get paid for something.
I'll make this easier.
But if they were saying, here's $10,000 to come on our show, I think you should say it insofar as this could have an effect on what you're saying.
100%. So example. I'm just giving you an example. Let's say Hassan Piker paid me $2,000 a month to appear on his show and to talk about legal issues. Do you think I should disclose that?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. And if Hassan Piker was doing some kind of incubator program where he was, getting up and comer lefty people and training them up and saying these are the good messaging, you would also say as a social norm that should be disclosed, correct?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, so it sounds like, and I want to know if there's any disagreement on this panel, to the extent that Taylor Lorenz's critique, and we're going to eviscerate Taylor Lorenz's article in a second, so don't be worried about that. To the extent, and only to the extent that Taylor Lorenz's critique is, these people should have disclosed their income streams. I think everyone here, related to their content, again, putting forth like the de minimis limits, whatever you want to say those thresholds are, but I think $8,000 a month, to the extent that some content creators were getting that, passes that. Do we all agree that that is something that should be disclosed?
I mean, I think like the general rule of thumb is probably to like err on the side of caution and like over disclose. Like you can't get in trouble for doing that. Because I think the problem here is like the appearance of the potential for like corrupt influence or something like that. You were talking to IRI. What do you think?
I say no. I'm sorry. I understand that it's for the greater good, but is it absolutely necessary? No, I don't think so. And I don't think, why should it change anything for people to disclose? What if there's a guy who comes in my channel and donates $1,000 a month? Should I disclose that?
Yeah, so I think the expectation, as I explained before, is one in which there's a contract. A contract is a meeting of the minds in which there's, a mutual. You're mutually being bound by something. A donation is a one-time thing. There's some sort of social expectation, but there's no formal requirement that to give some obligation back, right?
Whereas it's not about like the legality, Pisco or IRA. I think what the issue is if it comes out and you've been hiding it this whole time, and it's from someone who would otherwise be someone that you are maybe disagreeing with, or you purport to agree or disagree with, and it's like, wait, are you doing this for money? Because you were hiding this. So now it comes into question your character and like what kind of content you make. Like I understand that there is this sort of like social expectation of, hey, if the Democratic Party is giving you this much money, like, how do we know that you're going to hold them to account? Now, to be clear, in this story specifically, a bunch of these people totally criticize the Democrats. People are trying to use the stories to say, like, this is why so many of these influencers won't criticize Israel when
and we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But I think it's like if someone is paying you that much, like, and you are making videos about topics that specifically are downstream of those people's politics, you probably should say, like, by the way, these people give me money. Now, to be clear, people, and I really hate how misleading a lot of the reporting on this is, because everyone's like, yeah, all these creators getting $8,000 a month. Like, first of all, that was the cap. Second of all, there's a bunch of different things that people could be paid for. And my understanding is some people, something like David Pakman or BTC, I don't think they're getting paid $8,000 a month to just exist in this thing and go to these trainings. If anything, they're helping and they're part of the mentorship program, right? And then you've got smaller creators that are getting paid a lot less to, hey, make some content like every week, make a short, make sure you're improving your game. We're trying to expand your ideas. Like, this is a widespread thing, and I don't know if you would have to disclose, like, hey, I'm part of a training program, right? Like, it really depends.
Yeah,
on
I'm
what
not
you're
saying
doing.
that. I just want to be clear about what I'm saying before IRA responds. Like, I'm not saying you disclose the amount. I'm not saying you disclose other contract terms. But the mere fact, if there's a formal relationship with the contract and mutual expectations, I'm not saying anything else about the article is accurate or true. I just think that there ought to be a social norm. And IRA, I think that you would grant that. Like, if I were being paid thousands of dollars by Hassan Piker for a same kind of incubator program, that you would feel that I should disclose that. Because then people are going to say, well, the only reason he's not criticizing Hassan on global entry stuff or on this or that is because he's getting paid. And I think that's something that you would expect.
Not necessarily. I think, because to me, it's like people are projecting what they think these creators are going to do with that money. And if Hassan's paying you to come on his show, Pisco, I trust you that you're going to stick to your guns and that you're going to give your true opinion. You're not going to be motivated by the money. You're just appreciate that he's paying you for your time to be there, to give your opinion and be yourself. That's how I see it. So I don't know why Taylor went off on this thing about how, well, these people are doing this or that based on getting money. It's like you're projecting what you think you're capable of, not these guys. That's how I look at it.
So here's where I want to meet Pisco and Soypill like a little bit halfway and then push back at the same time. So like, I think the reason why the general practice to what Pisco and Soypill were saying should be to disclose is to avoid situations like this. Like, why are we even having a conversation about this right now? The second part about this, though, is that, to be clear, there was never any established deliverables. Now, a lot of people are having a difficult time wrapping their minds around that. And there's a lot of like conspiracy brain analysis going on in certain spaces about like, we'll put 2 and 2 together. What do you think they were giving that money for? They explicitly described what the program is for. It's essentially like a scholarship program. The whole point of it, as Brian,
mutual binding, though. I'm not trying to say that there was a deliverable expectations in terms of specific content. I think that you're correct about that, and I think even Taylor acknowledged that. So I think that's what you're referring to, Hutch. And so I'm not, but I just want to be clear about what I mean, which is basically they're promising to use the Chorus News network. They're binding themselves in a formal contractual way. That's all I mean by that. That there are some restrictions in their conduct that is formalized in a contract, and there are mutual expectations, and they're mutual promises to be bound, which isn't the same kind of dynamic and just a one-off donation. That's all I mean. I know what you're referencing is it's not a one-for-one editorial control, one-for-one, money for content. Agreed, but that's all I meant.
In practice, though, there was never like a single instance where there was any kind of demonstrated influence on the content output. I think like. So just to put a finer point on it, anytime there's like deliverables. So like if this group hired these or onboarded these smaller creators into the program and then, gave them instructions about like what topics to cover and these sorts of things, in that instance, you would be legally obligated to disclose. In this particular arrangement, there is no legal obligation. Now, that being said, like I said, I think it probably should. If I was in the program, I think I probably would have said something. And to be clear, it doesn't look like
not would you, should you, not would you, should people disclose?
Well, that's why we're having this conversation. I mean, I can see kind of both angles of this. Like, there's no, I think you're correct to point that the general best practice would be to disclose, just to avoid this kind of conversation. However, obviously, people are taking the story and going in completely unfounded directions. Like, it's really it's a really mainstream narrative. And I don't even have to name any names, but pool of creators in the space that have collective millions of audience members are theorizing that these people were paid to be silent about Israel Gaza and push the party line. And there's no evidence for this whatsoever. So that's something maybe we can unpack a little bit more. IRI, you wanted to continue there?
Well, I just building on what you're saying. I don't think these people that are being critical of the Chorus group care at all. I think they're just using it as something to push a false narrative. But where do you draw the line? What if you're banging somebody who's of a different political leaning, right? What if I'm banging a conservative? Do I have to reveal that to you guys? Because maybe I'm not being as harsh on MAGA because I'm banging some hot MAGA chick now. I mean, where do you draw the line on this stuff?
This is a funny example, but I unironically think that if you have a message and an idea that every time you're talking about how MAGA is this like baseless, immoral movement, and then it comes out that you've been keeping secret that you associate deeply with a specific MAGA person and are okay with that, and it goes against kind of what your values are, I would think that would be a similar thing in the same way that a lot of these left and lib left people probably say they want money out of politics, and this, if you don't really look too deep on what is actually happening, you just see, oh, they had money in politics here, they're getting paid to say things, looks a lot worse, and that's why I do think the article is a lot more misleading than people are letting on, because that's not really what's happening. It's not like it's like, here's 10 grand, kid, now go say Biden is cool and hip, like that's not what was going on. It was, hey, we want to promote these creators, we're going to give you money to, establish yourself more. Now, the only thing that I have seen is there was like, hey, if you're going to interact with or comment on a politician or topic using our money specifically, run it by us first. Not you can't do it. Just, hey, if I'm going to give you 10 grand because I'm trying to promote left-wing creators, and then out of nowhere you use my 10 grand to go do like some tour where you talk shit about every single DNC and say they're all awful and subvert exactly the reason this money
and
was
that could be
fundraised
campaign
for.
finance related compliance too. So about
it 100% is. It 100% is. Yeah.
Because these are non-taxable entities, and so electioneering communications, there's restrictions on specific electioneering communication. That doesn't mean any ideological communication. I see some confusion there. So I think some of these contractual provisions range from being characterized completely wrongly in the sense that like they're there for compliance purposes, or being subject to the direct usage of the funds, which I think is totally fine, and everyone understands the brand and reputational risk associated with like your funds being used in a smear ad against something that the Chorus is like not opposed to, and then or being like totally misconstrued in the case of the disclosure provision. So I agreed with you on the characterization there, but I do want to address what IRI said head on, which is this kind of like, where does it end, the disclosure stuff? I think that there are absolutely some personal relationships, perhaps, that in context would be the kind of thing that you should disclose for sure. If you take a certain position, for example, like let's say that you take a position that, all illegal immigrants should be deported, and then all of a sudden you're having sex with an illegal immigrant, or you're one of these people who is against gay people and think that gay marriage should be outlawed, and you're not disclosing the fact that you in fact are having sex with a gay person and you are gay yourself. I think that there are certain situations, I can't define them all in which maybe disclosure would make sense, but just because I can't put a fine line on where exactly the disclosure is required. But that's making the perfect the enemy of the good, and saying just because I can't define the contours perfectly around what should be disclosed, that therefore we should never have any disclosure ever. And I think that when we're dealing with this kind of thing, money, the exchange of money, that is like in the core of what people expect for disclosure. They expect it for FARA when it's like some foreign money coming in at bare minimum. And I think a social norm for money changing hands in political commentary domestically, that should be expected.
Well, again, what does it do though? And again, I think Soypill pointed out a great point that it's up to 8,000. I guarantee there's 3 people out of 90 that are getting 8,000. The rest of them are getting $1,200 a month. People are acting like this is game-changing money for most of the creators. It's probably not. And so, they're just getting a little bit of help to show up and get some instructions on how to post stuff and some ideas and, how to set up an LLC. Like, I don't know, man. To me, it's like, it's just like going to some sort of business school for a little bit or something.
So no disclosure ever? You don't think that there should be a social norm of disclosure no matter how much money in any situation?
I'm just trying to think of the positives. Like, is it going to make anyone feel better about the situation if you disclose this? I don't know. Like, I saw what happened with Progressive Victory when I was involved in that, and people just went insane thinking the worst things ever. And it did nothing of value if you disclosed or didn't disclose.
Well, in some cases, like with Progressive Victory, there were some like disclosures that people should have been doing. But like, you're right about the conspiracy stuff. Like, I get people in my mentions now, like every day by the dozens, that are accusing me of being paid by Destiny. They're calling it the Destiny Pack. So they're theorizing that the whole thing was funded by Destiny and that it was like a Zionist operation. So they're saying that we were paid by Destiny to do Israeli propaganda, which Progressive Victory had fucking nothing to do with Israel. And they collaborated with Destiny, I think, twice on canvassing events. Like, he wasn't like funding the whole operation. That was their logic, was like, they didn't want to like force people to disclose. And then if you have some small creator, we all saw like the backlash to this and the conspiracy theories that went wild based on absolutely nothing. So, I mean, I'm sympathetic to the argument that like, because they're not legally required to disclose because there are no deliverables, then I'm sympathetic to the idea of like protecting smaller creators as being a part of this thing. It kind of makes sense. Like, they're going after them like really fucking hard right now.
And I just want to add that when creators start making enough money that this stuff seems like it has any impact, then I'll start making noise about, hey, we should disclose this or that. But most creators are barely making it, barely surviving. So I trust that they're not going to have their views changed by some organization trying to give them a little help with the business side of things. I mean, maybe I'm naive. I don't know, but it's just like, to me, people need all the help they can get. Why are we trying to put rules on it?
If they're so small that this money could be the make or break between whether or not they're able to make more content, don't you think that would give them more of an incentive to agree with whoever's giving them money rather than the people who don't need it, right? Like, I think the problem is when it's like, hey, you're an independent creator, and it's like, hey, I'll give you this money, just don't say this thing. I'm not saying this is what happened, but this is what people are worried about, especially for the smaller creators, because the smaller creators are the one who have more, vulnerabilities.
There's the appearance of that kind of impropriety being possible. But that should lead people to think like, okay, well, we have the names of, what was it, like, I don't know, 12 to 15 people that were either named in the article or came out afterwards. Like, there's plenty of content on their feeds to sort of browse through. Is there any evidence that these people were, super pro-Palestinian or were sounding the alarm about Gaza, and then they joined this program and then that stopped? Like, is there any actual evidence that they were swayed in one direction or another. Like, no,
Yeah,
there's
like the
not.
one thing
There's
they keep throwing around, Hutch, is like, what's her name, Oliviana or whatever. It said Alyssa Slotkin is cool. She's one of my favorite Democrats, and it's like, I can like maybe you could purport that is the reason why she said that, but in my experience is, hey, when you hang out with a lot of really
bro.
involved people and you get to know them and they talk to you on a personal level and explain their politics, it's like, oh, I like this.
Hold on,
person
wait,
now.
hold on. I want to jump in. This is like echo, like social media echo chamber shit. The idea that somebody can't organically like Alyssa
No, I'm agreeing. I'm saying it's stupid.
Oh,
that they're
okay.
saying
I
that
thought you were letting credence to that.
No,
But
I'm saying like, look, it's like I say that I like Rokana now, and that's not as organic as like, yeah, I just read his platform on Wikipedia. I got the opportunity to go along with his campaign and see the inner workings and talk to him on a one-on-one basis, and I'm like, yeah, I think this guy's got his finger on the pulse. I like his politics, but the exact same thing could happen for an Alyssa Slotkin when someone like Oliviana or whatever, I forgot how to pronounce her name, is hanging out with the Biden and going to the White House, and it's like, yeah, like of course she's gonna start liking these people more. So like it's not like they're paying her to say Alyssa Slotkin is cool. Like I think that's kind of absurd.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just to answer your question, Pisco, if you're being
Yeah.
sponsored by a campaign or by an organization to promote their message, yes, you should disclose that.
Okay.
But if you're just getting paid to get help with your content, I don't think you need to tell everybody that.
Interesting. So it's not, if there's sponsored content, whether it's organizational or whether it's related to a campaign, so it's the link between the specific content and what you're
And the
producing as a
deliverable.
product and the deliverable.
there's
That's where the
deliverable.
disclosure. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
so it's
legally,
deliverable.
you're legally obligated to in that spot. If there's any
Well,
kind of deliverable, you have to disclose that.
I'm not sure about that. Like, I know that there's like consumer financial stuff you have disclosures and things you have to put like ads and shit. But I don't know how much I can stretch this, guys. Like, if I'm getting paid for like an influencer like incubator by Daily Wire, and they're paying me $8,000 a month to give, and I have that financial relationship. I think, again, I'm not saying there's some legal imposition. I'm not even saying we should get all bent out of shape about it and like not support Chorus anymore because of this mistake. I think it is a mistake. I'm just saying, like, I think I should disclose that, man. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I think that the audience has a right to know. And then when I say right to know, I don't mean legal right to know, but that it's good for lib content creators and for us generally in the media space to be upfront about that stuff, and then people can like judge for themselves whether they trust IRI or Pisco or Hutch, given that financial relationship. But it's the same kind of shit I think that we would look when we look at the Trump administration. Do you trust Trump to be impartial when he gets the Qatari airplane, or when all these people are sending him basically legalized bribe to the crypto stuff, in some cases illegal stuff? No, I mean, we all understand that money's a little different, and how money influences people, that there's a potential for bias there, and I'm totally fine saying that there should be a social norm in disclosing that. If it bears on content at all or relates to content at all, I can't define the exact scope of when that turns into a mandated disclosure ethically, but I just think that there's some duty there.
But Pisco, you maybe buried the lead a little bit there by saying it was a mistake. What didn't they disclose? Did they not disclose their part of Chorus? Did Chorus not say they gave them a stipend? Like,
I don't know for each creator. I think that they disclose that they're associated with Chorus, and to the extent that Taylor is accusing them of not doing so and just generally secretive, I think that is a distortion, and that's wrong, and that's part of this, what I take to be the disingenuous attack on Chorus. So I think that they were disclosing the relationship with the entity, but of course that's not a disclosure of financial compensation or some kind of award. And so I do think that there's an additional obligation specifically to disclose that you're making money, and there might have even, I haven't seen a denial of this, contractual language to the effect of you're not allowed to disclose that you're part of the program or getting money. Again, not the same thing as being forbidden from being told about the association, or sorry, from telling about the association with Chorus itself. But I do think that there's, again, I don't want to spend so much time focusing on it because I think that this should be an easy thing to agree on. Maybe not, that you should disclose that you're getting paid additionally to the associational relationship.
Well, let's dive into the particulars of the article that we take issue with. I'll kick off like the most egregious thing in that article for me was actually in the subheading. In the subheading, she said essentially that these creators were paid to toe the party line, Like that was the thing that I felt was the most disingenuous and malicious aspect of that reporting, because, you know, she might say she was looking at the contract, you know, she reached out to various creators and I don't think any of them agreed to speak with her before this. Now, she had written an article previously and some of these creators had expressed kind of shock with the way that she was framing things before. So I'm really not really sure why they didn't want to speak with her or give her any kind of comment. But if she would have looked into, like, I know there's like 90 creators, but it's like your job. If she would have like looked into these creators' feeds, she would have seen that there were many of these creators were not keeping it a secret. And there were plenty of creators that were speaking out against the Democratic Party and Israel specifically. There was one creator where it was like so intense. Like there was one creator, I can't remember her name, but she was basically
featured on the page too.
Yeah,
right?
She was featured on their website, and she basically was like calling the Democratic Party like complicit in genocide. And if this was really a program that was meant to incentivize people with a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to just like push the party line, there's no explainable, no plausible reason why someone like her would have been not only in the program, but as Soy Pill said, her face was on the website. Like she was featured on the website. I'm curious, what were some of your problems with the article, everybody on the panel?
Well, I think just in principle, it seems like the narrative that people are taking away from it is, like you said, something that's not true, which is people were being paid to say things that they wouldn't otherwise say, or being tailored in their content and restricted in ways that would otherwise kind of suggest impropriety. And I have yet to see evidence of that. I have yet to see this kind of like, this person changed their opinion. This person was not allowed to make content on this. That's the thing that I think would really upset me. I think Taylor has since kind of clarified, or maybe, I don't know if you want to call it a walk back, but on Twitter said it's about not saying that you got money from 1630, which is like the fund that paid Chorus to then pay, who then paid these stipends to these creators. But I don't even know if these creators know anything about 1630. They just know they signed up with Chorus to make stuff. So it's like, why do they have to then look at who's funding the nonprofit? Like, why do, like, that part to me is just like not on the creators at all. If you want to criticize Chorus for not disclosing that, maybe, but like, yeah, I just don't see like what the ultimate like thing anyone is really supposed to be mad about, considering there's so many programs like this. And as far as I can tell, no one is saying any lies or tailoring their message. But it does seem like it's part of this narrative of, hey, the Democratic Party lost 2024 because they wouldn't be critical of Gaza. They don't have their finger on the pulse. They don't know how to do influencer ground game. They're struggling now to find the Joe Rogan of the left. They're spending $20 million to like reach out to young men. And this is just another story that fits into that narrative of,
yeah.
And they're dumping all this money in to secretly fund creators to say what they want to spread their message because they're not authentic. And that's why I think it's resonating with the Taylor Lorenz and Hassan crowd, but it doesn't really fit. I don't think it's checks out. I think it's just nothing.
I just want to react to just one comment that I'm seeing from Bad Enchilada, who says, Hutch is a moron. Hold on. What does it say? It keeps going. Hutch is a moron. God damn it, it keeps moving. He's pointing to someone on the margins to prove Chorus doesn't obviously have an agenda. Here's the issue with that. If this program was meant to incentivize people to toe the party line, there is no way that you can explain her being in this program. And it wasn't just her. There were like 2 or 3 other creators out of the 12 or 13 that we know of that were outspoken on Gaza, that were critical of the Democratic Party. So how do you explain that? Like I've heard some people say, oh, it was so they could have like a token, like pro-Palestinian person for appearances. But like,
then what's the point?
What is the point of that? Like, who are they trying to like, who are they trying to assuage in terms of
their secret conspiracy goes so deep. It's like, we'll have this agenda that we'll promote, we'll spread it everywhere, but we'll also spread the complete opposite with some of our top creators, just so no one suspects that we're spreading the opposite message. It's like, okay, or the more likely explanation is there weren't restrictions on whether or not you could criticize Gaza, and a lot of people that they're more willing to give money to might already align with their message. Like, you can call that manufactured consent, but it just makes sense that more of these people that are Democrats are just in general going to be less likely to criticize Democrats when they want to criticize not only the people that are about to win an election or the people in power right now. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's such Occam's razor does not say, oh yeah, they had the secret token pro-Palestine people. It's very strange.
I want to respond real quick to the the notion of some of the things we disagreed with. But I did see also, I'm getting one guy in the chat, this comparison to tenant media. I think it's different for several reasons. One is I think that there is a very big important distinction here that the funders, the ultimate funders here, turned up being Russian government agents, which matters both legally and I think ethically here. Two, I do think that there's a self-standing obligation on behalf of creators to make sure that there's no that their money is coming from some legitimate source. In the case of Tenet, you had like Edward Gregorian, you had evidence that some of the creators there were like aware of how suspicious this was, and there was a one-to-one sort of connection between this Edward Gregorian figure and themselves. And it's not like 1630 Fund, which has like a Wikipedia page and people know what it is, and it's been funding things generally in the country. It's a dark money organization, quote unquote dark money organization, but it's generally known about. And I think that in terms of due diligence, the kind of oversights by someone like Dave Rubin aren't the same oversights, or not even oversights here. So I just think it's a choice about whether or not categorically you think that these kinds of organizations are off the table when it comes to left-wing groups. And that's one of the things that I think IRI mentioned. Certainly I know that Hutch has been waving this flag about is, do some of the critics really have a problem with the setup? Put aside the disclosure, do you really have a problem if this was an incubator funded by a 501c4 or where 501c4 money was being channeled through it? If this was to help anti-genocide, pro-Gaza, leftist creators, would you have an issue with doing this tit for tat, especially when the Supreme Court has signed off on it? I don't think that you would, just because we have. Go ahead. Sorry. So go ahead.
They wouldn't say a damn thing.
Well, I wanted to move the conversation towards a broader conversation about like dark money in politics. Like IRI, what do you think about the idea of right-wing media organizations that themselves take in tens of millions of dollars, dark money funding? Should the left like unilaterally disarm? Should we just like close ourselves? It kind of reminds me of the gerrymandering conversation, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hell no.
Well, I can push back on this. I could push back on this though.
We should
the idea is not.
Well, let IRI talk for. He hasn't spoken in a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just say we should take all the money we can get. I trust my fellow content creators. They will not be persuaded by money to change their opinions. I know these people. I've gotten to know a lot of them. And there's just this like weird idea that people will just change their mind for a few $1,000s a month, which is absurd. And it tells me more about Taylor than anybody else. I don't know. I know content creators, and I could give them $8,000 a month, and they're not going to change their opinion on anything.
Well, a lot of people would. I got to push back against
a lot
that.
of people would.
Money. That's a full-time, basically six-figure salary, to be clear.
Okay. I'm just saying that people have principles and people mean what they say when they come on here and create their content. I know people get upset to hear that, but I believe that. So, call me naive or whatever you want. But to the larger point, we should take all the money, use all the tools available to us, just like gerrymandering. I hate gerrymandering. I think it's one of the most poisonous things for our democracy. But boy, do I support gerrymandering the shit out of California and New York right now, because that's what the right is doing in Texas. We have to bring a gun to a gunfight. We need to play the game of dark money, and we need to stop attacking each other over it. And if there's a couple of bad apples in the bunch that do take the money and change their opinion, then so be it. But the vast majority of people will do the right thing, use the money, amplify their message, and we will benefit from that.
Wait, so two things. One, I see someone in chat saying 8,000 a month is not 6 figures. Oh, sorry, 96,000. Go fuck yourself. Second, this is not necessarily the gerrymandering thing, because we can still do all the funding and still disclose it. And I think that was one of Taylor's points that I do think is more salient. It's like, yes, take all the money we can to fight back against this ridiculous
just
regime
disclose
change, crazy stuff, but just say, hey, I'm getting a bunch of money to fight back. I think that's not playing the same game, but still using the resources. You're not disarming, but you're being more transparent about it.
Do you think that? So, yes or no? Do you think the left should take advantage of dark money funding?
Yes, I think the gold standard is to do, like Kyle Klinsky always talks about this, and I agree with it. He says the gold standard is default ads and memberships. I think that is the gold standard. I think that content creators should strive for that level of independence. I commend people who are able to do it. I would love to do it at some point. And by the way, I'm not taking money from any other group. You guys know, you'll know about any revenue source related to my content. But
I did apply to Chorus. You guys should too. Apparently they pay a lot.
So to the extent that you're able to do the gold standard, what I take to be the gold standard, I think you should. And I think we should strive for that. That said, I don't think that we need to just like not accept money from these organizations that are willing to fund liberal creators. Not only do I think that we don't need to unilaterally disarm in that way, I think that we were asking for this after this election. I think that we've been pining for more resources to be funneled into these kind of online
That's why you
spaces.
started it, right?
Yeah, and that's why I tweeted out that I thought that Brian was, frankly, transparent about that from the beginning. So, I commend him for taking this effort. I wish they had disclosed the specific creators, but, just disclose and move on, and let's do it.
Pisco, what if this has a negative impact on people pouring money into the space because they don't want to be associated with some anti-Gaza, like anything like that? Now, all of a sudden, you've got people who are willing to donate tens of millions of dollars that maybe are hesitant to now.
I think that this, I'm going to take the optimistic tone, which you often strike, IRI, is I think that this is probably, in the end, on net, better for Chorus. I think that more eyes are now on Chorus. I think that the response has been quite harsh against the article, even if there are, and I think that there's, one or two salient critiques by Taylor. In general, I think most of us acknowledge that it's a fucking hit piece, and a lot of it's in bad faith, and a lot of it's disingenuous. We haven't talked all about that yet, but I think in general, people are seeing through that hit piece angle of it, the disingenuous attacks, and are seeing it for what it is, and the facts speak for themselves. And so I don't think that it's been like mortally wounded. To the contrary, I think that now that more people know about it, and now that it's more in people's minds, I think that it might be more successful.
But what about just people who want to donate in general? Maybe they'll be a little more hesitant in the future now because of all this brouhaha.
I'm not so sure. I think that's overstating the importance of the very people that are making these kinds of attacks, and I don't think that they're going to be quelled by these kinds of attacks, especially if they're seeing the kind of backlash against it and the rallying around the flag that a lot of the libs are doing. And so I'm not so convinced that this has been a mortal blow on these kinds of efforts. And so I won't go that far. And I think that the future is bright for lib content creators, and we should continue to encourage that.
I saw a question in chat. I have to ask it, which is, we kind of touched on this, but should we immediately be preemptively disclosing anytime we are paid, or just say yes if anyone asks?
I don't know why that's the dichotomy. I think that you should disclose non-trivial amounts of money and content streams for which there is a exchange, like some kind of mutual promise. If there's a mutual promise for money, not just anytime someone donates, a mutual promise for money where there's some kind of binding on both parties, you should disclose non-trivial amounts that are related to your content. I don't say you disclose for your Domino's pizza run, or like if you have a paper route, or if you are making money doing legal representation on the side, or if you're making money doing other stuff on the side. I think that you don't need to disclose that revenue stream, but as a social norm, I think it's important to disclose that.
Yeah. You don't need to do it like every single time you go live, but if you have like a regular community, and you put like a Discord message, pin a message or something like that. I had a Nightbot command when I was doing PV stuff. Like, it's just generally, I think, a good idea to disclose these kinds of things. There's just like what's legally required. So we have these guidelines to tell people, when is it actually required. In this case, it wasn't. And I think, it's just up to the creator, I think, man. I don't think at the end of the day, go ahead.
You bring up a good point though, Hutch. Like, how do you disclose this to satisfy the masses? Because you said it, I said it on stream a couple times. It's like, they're just going to keep moving the goalposts. Well, you didn't say it X number of times. You didn't say it before you did this. It's like, are you going to, I don't even think you could satisfy people by disclosing it in any way at all. They'd say, oh, you only said it once, or you only had it on your website where nobody goes. Like, you just can't make these people happy.
I want to push back a little bit about what you just said, Pisco, a moment ago, where you said, like, you don't think that this is going to have like a lasting impact. You think like, I guess you were saying like liberal media is like trending in the right direction. I think this did very real damage. And like, that's what pisses me off. Because if you go in Brian's mentions, if you go in Pacman's mentions, if you look at their YouTube comments, it is a deluge of conspiracy brain rot nonsense, promulgated in bad faith, maliciously by enormous creators. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't really like go away. Like, I would be shocked if a year from now, Brian wasn't still seeing comments accusing him of being an Israeli propagandist. And there's no accountability mechanism for this whatsoever. Like, these people in that space pounced on this story as quickly as they possibly could to push this narrative that liberal media and liberals in media are all super corrupt and they all work for the man in the system and they're all running cover for Israel. They're the like virtuous truth tellers that are, you know, speaking truth to power, and they're just doing it for the love of the game and all this shit. And it's in service of this narrative. And then once we saw all these responses that were thoroughly refuting some of the central premises in that article, these people doubled down. Like they didn't incorporate any of the new information into their analysis. They kept pushing it. I reacted to a Hassan stream where he was watching the responses, but literally not even paying attention. He was looking at his own chat. And so they would say stuff like, you know, Chorus had no say on what we were saying. Like there was no influence. We made our own appointments with politicians and did our own interviews, and that they had no creative kind of like input on what we were doing. And then he would pause the video and start talking about how the Democratic Party was paying influencers to push the party line. Yeah, like so, that has tremendous like lasting damage.
And it hurts more coming from the multimillionaire who, like, I wish I had half that much money.
And that motherfucker has never been. Sorry, God.
My hope is, and my intuition is, that this will cause more eyes to be seen on Chorus, and that regardless of, you know, I think that there are real costs imposed by this kind of coverage, no doubt, is that they'll come out ahead here, and that the backlash against the article, which has been fierce, it's not just been the case that we've seen overwhelmingly negative responses here. I think that there's been overwhelmingly negative responses to Taylor as well, and I think for good reason, because I think that this is, frankly, there are a lot of dishonest aspects of the article, and certainly of the post-article narrative, including on Taylor's interview with Glenn Greenwald, among other
That's wild
moments.
That she's talking with him too, because he's like so discredited, like MAGA brained, like anti like, you know, pro Gen 6, like totally grifted hard, and the fact that she's going on him, like
he shit on her so hard. And I
I
remember specifically their beef, and I took Taylor's side in that beef. And he has totally lambasted her, and so in a very kind of, I think, a very slimy way, Greenwald, who I don't like, and Taylor, who I don't like, had her on, and I think Taylor rightly called him out for his, like, oh, our favorite journalist, a very valuable member, and so yeah, I think that it's a little bit slimy, some of these characters, but I just want to be clear about something. It's my intuition that Chorus will come out ahead. It's my hope. I will try to make it so that I'm at least spreading the narrative that I think is true, which is that, you know, they should have disclosed, but put everything else is bullshit and frankly not worth your time in terms of the disingenuousness. But yeah, no, I guess I can't prove that to you, Hutch, but I recognize that some of these content creators are irresponsible.
No, I think so. I think your critique has been like very fair. I think you have a reasonable take when it comes to disclosure, and I think your analysis so far has been appropriately critical of Taylor Lorenz. But IRI looked like you wanted to talk.
I support what Pisco said. I think this is a huge advertising campaign for Chorus. I can't imagine how many people requested to sign up saying, holy shit, I can actually make some money and promote my content and use their resources. I think it's been great for Chorus. I think for money pouring into the space, I'm concerned that people might be hesitant to be dragged into this. And I think also the missing story here is that Taylor is like projecting what she would do if she got money, you know, because how else could you come up with this weird scenario? Because there's no evidence of anyone changing their opinions in any way. And it pisses me off because people like Olivia are being called out for supporting Alyssa Slotkin. I think back in May, she tweeted out, I really like Alyssa Slotkin. They're like, of course she does. This is why, because she was paid by Chorus. Look at all the signs behind me. People have been questioning me for years. You don't like Biden. No way. You can't like these people. I do. And I'm not paid to say that. So it undermines all of the support that people like me and Olivia have for these candidates that other people might disagree with.
Wait, IRI, close your eyes.
Okay.
Who is the person in the top right of your screen? What's her name?
Her name?
Yeah.
It would be your left.
Your left, but the top right of your camera. It's the green one.
That's also Brooks.
Yeah,
okay. There you go.
Right. He's not a grifter.
Wait, I want to respond to something though, IRI, because like I hear you. I love your positivity, and I love that you respect, and I think that you do respect your fellow content creator. But and I think that maybe there is a bit of a self-report in what Lorenz is stating, especially I haven't looked into this allegation that she receives money from the same, or at least some entity that she's affiliated with receives money from the same.
I can speak to that, by the way.
Okay, sure. But I don't think it's a leap of logic for people to be like, look at this money, like see the connection there. As left-wing people, I think we understand that money can have a particularly corrupting influence on people, on ideologies, on political discourse. And so I don't think it's such a leap for Taylor to suggest. Now, she hasn't tied it to any specific editorial control or ideological orthodoxy, so agreed with you totally on that. But on the mere notion that money influences people to act, I don't think that that's such a humongous leap.
Don't you think she should have to at least be able to point to something, even just she can't connect the dots, just something, anything at all to make these accusations? That's like
absolutely.
Without the solid evidence, it's just, hey, isn't this kind of weird? And then you have a 60-paragraph article about that. It's like, well, maybe, but did anything happen? And that's why the article is like kind of a little bit misleading and a little bit more like attacky and hit piecey, because there isn't a direct connection that she can point to and say, this is why it's bad. But to be clear, IRI, $100,000 a year will absolutely, even if it's not paying someone to change their opinion, they're going to feel obligated to at least align with the people giving them $100,000, especially if they're small.
For a small content creator, yes, but the small people are not getting $8,000. Yes, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
They're probably getting $1,200 a month. It's not game-changing money. For the smaller guys, I'm saying.
I agree with you, Ira, that they need to, if they're going to make the specific allegation that there's ideological recentering or some kind of attempt here to protect the orthodoxy, and Taylor absolutely makes a connection and implies heavily that the Democratic Party, the Democrats, are either in charge with this effort or in line with this effort in some kind of formal way, or at least in some kind of, they're observing from afar and like cackling at this notion. And so that connection is absolutely there. It's absolutely implied. Beyond that, the article contains falsehoods I've pointed to in the past, including the notion that all communications with politicians need to be funneled through chorus, which I think is blatantly contradicted by the contractual language that we've seen. It makes other kind of implications related to basically this all being done in totally secrecy, totally behind closed doors, when I think that there's a mixed record here in terms of the specific disclosure of the content creators receiving the money. But in terms of Chorus's overall mission, I think that they've been transparent about that. It's not like they were hiding. So in general, I agree with you that they haven't made the connection for the specific allegations in the community, which are that this is all an effort from the DNC to protect Israel. And that is one of these accusations going around.
Well, Taylor is smart. Like, she's not a stupid person. And Wired they have their own legal team that clears these kinds of things. So she framed things in such a way that it was like a dog whistle. So like, she didn't come out and say that they were being paid to not talk about Israel, but then she said in a tweet when she was talking about it, there's about 90 people in the program and most of them are centristy types that aren't really talking about Israel too much. So boom, that gives like the lefty space room to start throwing those accusations out, right? She doesn't come out and say that the Democratic Party are like coordinating with these influencers to, push them to do specific messaging, but she says like toe the party line and stuff like that. And so she's also pretty savvy when it comes to social media. And so, she's obviously very, very cozy with Hassan at this point. And so what does she do? Shortly after she posts the article, she goes, I can confirm that Hassan Piker was not approached for this. So like somehow inserting him in a story that had nothing to do with him in an effort to like make him look like,
well, you say that, but she included him in the article. She included reference to him in the article.
That's true. But like that's right. I mean, like she put it in the article, right? But like, so like she's baiting him to like read her article on stream, which he does, which generates her traffic. And so she knows that Hassan's audience are super devoted and they're super passionate. They're super engaged and they will like sort of like fight for her online. They'll go to bat for her.
And Hutch, just to supplement that, this is a self-admitted, like in our conversation on horseshoe theory and in a lot of clips, someone who says, I hate the Democrats. That's her position. Not the Democrats have problems, not, let's reform the Democratic Party. It's I hate the Democrats, and as soon as there's like a different option, I'm going with it, and she likes to subvert them. So it's part of that as well.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. And I think that these references, I mean, I was dinging her for her reference to Hassan in the article because I think it's part of this this way to paint the Democrats as completely out of touch, where the contrast to paying for these shills who are being funneled through chorus and this dark money, the contrast to that is Hassan. And so I do think that there's a kind of intentional, juxtaposition here. And I think that there's also part of the narrative and part of why I find it to be disingenuous. So yeah, I have no love for Taylor Lorenz. I find, again, some value.
Well, wait, Pisco, before you go too far, I have invited Taylor on the show. She is interested, and she is scheduling something. So she will come and talk, okay?
Let's absolutely do it.
She's a nice person, okay?
So somebody gave me a super chat that asked to clarify dark money. Who wants to speak to that? Like, what is dark money in politics? Yeah,
dark money, and by the way, I do recommend reading the book Dark Money by Jane Mayer. It's a very interesting book about how this works, but essentially just the idea of you don't know where these funding sources are coming from. And certain organizations, I don't know if it's the 501(c)(3)s, but you don't have to disclose who these donors are. It's just, hey, we get funding, and you don't. And like, for example, if you were to look at DNC funding, I think they have receipts for every single person, has a legal, first, last name, maybe even the social security number attached to that. I don't know if that's how it works, but some sort of receipt and not blockchain, but like a receipt
public
list
public FEC filings.
Yes, public FEC filing. Thank you. Dark money is when you don't have to do that. And certain super PACs and certain campaign financing laws have allowed people to funnel large amounts of money without disclosing where that's coming from. The book itself gets into stuff about how money, you're not like giving Chris Christie $10 million to pass a law for you, but what you can do is give a bunch of money through these kind of secret orgs so that you don't have to disclose it. It goes downstream. All these tiny little politicians in different states for House reps and for local politics get 10 times, 20 times, 30 times as much coverage on TV and ads, and allows them to prop up. And it's not buying an election, but it's how it influences our politics. And it's a good book.
Most people in the country, like specifically on the Democratic side of the aisle, but this is a pretty bipartisan issue. I think like most people oppose the idea of secretive money being used to like fund various like advocacy stuff or political any kind of like political projects. It can be super nefarious, but also this could be like there's dark money donors, like 1630 itself, this fund, they have donated to political Democratic Party candidates all over the country. They've spent money on reproductive rights advocacy, climate change, immigration reform. Like this is a very, very left-wing organization. So you can say that sort of just like principally it's not good to have anonymous money being used for political purposes, but the Supreme Court has ruled on this. Right-wingers are using dark money sources. If left-wingers just principally decide that we're going to oppose this, we could be potentially cutting ourselves off from tens of millions of dollars in funding. And to the whole thing about Taylor, by the way, the connection between her and the dark money stuff is there's this guy named Pierre Omidyar, and he's a eBay co-founder. So he's worth billions of dollars. He started up a program an LLC called Omidyar Network. They have a journalist residency program which funds independent journalism by giving them an $8,000 stipend, $8,000 a month stipend, plus $2,000 a month, I think, for traveling. She receives this money. It is all publicly disclosed because it's not a nonprofit. So that's her kind of cover there, is like she disclosed that she was a part of this program and none of it is funded by dark money. However, the guy, Pierre Omidyar, he donated $45 million to this thing called Election Action Fund, which itself was a fund run by 1630. And so she didn't directly get dark money funds, but she definitely is getting money from the same billionaire who spent $45 million on 1630.
Just like I'm getting money from Bezos, right? And I'm getting money from Google, right? So there's a level of attenuation that I think is also true of like potentially of this chorus media structure, where it's a lot of money for these individual creators, but it's chump change for this fund. It's chump change for these big money donors. And so as long as people are disclosing, how much conclusion can you draw from this, especially given that many of these people have like ongoing track records. There doesn't seem to be a change in difference in their policy positions pre and after money. And so people can draw their own conclusions. I just want some disclosure. But like, at the end of the day, even with default ads, even though I say that that's that's the gold standard, it is payment from a big organization. I'm sure Google has arrangements with the state of Israel. I'm sure Amazon has some deal. Bezos has some deals with the state of Israel. Bezos is like working close with Trump in some respect. And so there's a level of attenuation here. There's a level of, does this really matter? I understand. I just want some disclosure. I think that's a good critique. But apart from that, let's stop pretending that we should just like unilaterally disarm for the sake of it when no one else is holding on to this standard. And when really we're just trying to save our country. And I don't know if there's anything even inherently wrong with taking it.
Well, let's leave it at this. We're going to get our facts straight. I think I'm doing a debate on this tomorrow. Hutch and I are both doing a debate on Thursday. If you are still down for that, Hutch, is that still happening?
Is that happening? I don't even know.
Okay, I think it's happening on my end.
Are you talking about Wick?
Wick, yeah.
He didn't reach out to me, so I assume it's not happening.
Okay, I'll force him to. But okay. Yes, and yeah, it sounds like we're going to have her on the pod. We'll be able to ask her directly, and she'll be able to clarify any and all speculation about what she was implying and what her intentions were. So we'll leave it at that for now, because we've been talking about it for an hour. Let's go to our second topic, the much more dark and nefarious topic, of course. Is Trump dead, guys?
No, he's alive.
Are you sure?
But he's not looking great, man. He's not looking good. In general, I've seen some of the theory crafting, these Twitter threads that he's like had a stroke or whatever. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but in his public appearances leading up to this weekend, he just looks like shit. He's not making any sense, but yeah, that's my take.
Well, he's also been saying strange things like, I really want to get into heaven. He's never talked about that. JD Vance also said over the weekend, I think he said, or it was an interview last week, maybe he said, in the last 200 days, I've learned a lot that would prepare me to take over. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? And he's also been out of the media spotlight for like the last 6 days, which is quite uncharacteristic of Trump. So I think something's going on.
Yeah, and we have the IV marks on his hand, right? He's got the bruising from some sort of IV. Now, to be clear, he's 79. So he's doing something health-wise always, no matter what. But is it a sign of declining health is the question. He does look like he's visually deteriorating in ways that are similar to other people that quickly died after they did that. So
the Queen, is that what you're referencing?
The Queen and other
Prince Philip too. He looked like Feinstein. I don't know if he's quite Feinstein yet, but
he's not Feinstein level.
No,
I don't think he is.
The thing about Trump, though, is that he is the eternal narcissist. And so this guy is never going to not want to be on camera. So I think we are inevitably barreling towards a moment like McCain had it during that one Senate subcommittee hearing where he just completely spaced out when he was questioning Comey. And then it was revealed shortly after that he had some kind of a brain tumor.
McConnell spaced out.
Yeah, McConnell completely froze. There was that other
guy.
Mueller
is in the fucking Parkinson's home or whatever.
Who's
Did you hear that?
Mueller? What?
Mueller has Parkinson's, and he because they are trying to subpoena him because of their fucking, it tells you a lot. They want to put Jan 6 behind them, but they also want to like relitigate Russiagate for the trillionth time. And so they like subpoenaed Mueller, and they disclose that Mueller has Parkinson's.
Oh, okay.
And he's like in a memory home.
I think that's over the Epstein files. They're trying to get him in, but I didn't. You read that he's in a home. I read that he's had it for 4 years, but you saw that he was in a home.
Maybe I thought I saw that, but I want to take that back and say I'm not sure. But I certainly saw that he had Parkinson's.
I think
it's a memory specialist or something.
I think for someone like Trump, so much of his sort of brand or image is based on him being very virile. Like the whole allure of Trump, of what he sells is like, he's almost 80 years old, but he has the energy of a fucking 25-year-old, and he's got the fight in him, and so I think like when we see him age, as I think we already are, like, first of all, he has way less energy this time around. Like all of these press gaggles, cabinet meetings, these events where he's signing executive orders in the Oval Office, he just sounds so much more diminished than he did even his first term. But as the country sees him age, I think this is going to cause like a pretty big psychic sort of like discomfort for MAGA. Like they're not going to be comfortable watching this guy get really diminished. And I don't know.
I hope he hangs on for the next 3.5 years because I want to see him lose his mind. I want to wake up one morning and read that Trump was found wandering the White House lawn in his tidy whities at 2 a.m.
Nice.
Just
Well, we already
losing
had
it.
that. He was kind of like pacing on the roof. Someone speculated
Yes.
that was kind of like a dementia episode, right? Like he took the wrong door or something.
Nothing will ever beat Joe Biden walking into the Amazon rainforest. After that.
Oh, come on.
Wait, all right, I
That's
know
a
you're,
cheap
like,
fake, okay?
you're
Cheap
slightly-
fake.
So Ira, you're slightly joking about the like, oh, I want to see him decline, but I think there's a very actually beneficial piece to like deconstructing MAGA as a base, watching this lionized, hyper-masculine figure, the thing that fascism relies on, deteriorate into a pathetic, weak being, will unironically cause them to move away from this in ways that like we've never seen based on any of the fucked up shit he's done. None of the January 6th stuff, none of the accusations of sexual misconduct, none of that is going to do it. But what will is watching him look like a loser. Unironically, I think we'll break up the base, and I think that'll be good. So don't die, Trump. Stay alive as long as possible. We love you.
How did you guys like figure out what was going on? Because was this on Friday night, by the way, or was it Saturday?
Friday or Saturday, yeah.
It was
I think
whatever,
it was
whatever the
Friday
night.
yeah.
Yeah, so like it turned into, I think it started as a meme, but then all of a sudden I think everybody started taking it seriously. It was like when Trump got COVID the first time, or the Trump got COVID that first term and he went to Walter Reed or whatever, and it was a vibe on social media then. But like I had no context for what was happening. I opened up Twitter, and do you guys know the account Vanilla Opinions?
Yep.
Like they constantly troll, and they got me, bro, because it was like they did like a fake like I don't know, New York Times post or something like that, saying
They
that he
fully
had
got
died.
you. They fully got you.
Fully got me. I was like, oh my
no,
fucking
dude.
And then I start scrolling. I'm like,
Wow.
wait, and it took me like a minute of scrolling to figure out, like, wait a second, like what is this a meme? Is everybody
Same
memeing right
thing
now?
happened to me, Hutch. I was looking, I was like, okay, they're just fucking around, they're just speculating, and what's her name? Onion Person posted a video. I didn't see the date on the video, but it was when they were wheeling like a dead body out of the White House, and someone had taken like some back alley footage of it, and I was like, oh my god, it's happening. But it was from 2023. I was so upset. Like there was 10 seconds of bliss in my head where I was like, it happened. But
Oh, you think that's wrong? You think it's wrong to wish that the president? Now, we're not saying we wish that someone do something to the president. You think it's wrong to wish that the president dies?
I am so fucking tired. I had a debate with one of those Jubilee fascists last week, and he was like, "You're being mean. You're not letting us into jobs, and you're swearing, and I'm like, buddy, you want to like kick all of my friends out of the country and put me in a camp?" And it's like, oh, like yeah, I know I want to put you in alligator Alcatraz and deport your whole family and oppress you and destroy your life and kill trans people, blah 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 blah. But you're not allowed to wish for my death. That's mean. So much for the tolerant left. Fuck you. I love when Hitler died, okay? I'll say it. I'm brave, okay? It's cool when Hitler died.
It's like it's all memes and it's funny, and it was pretty fucking funny. Just scrolling through Twitter that night, some of those memes were fucking unbelievable. And at the same time, it's also like not great what's happening right now, because it's a symptom of like extreme hyper polarization. And I think like that happening is the reason why so many people on both sides of the aisle across the spectrum are starting to feel like this democratic project that we've been doing for the last 250 years like might not work. Like, how is this sustainable in the long run if like half the country are, like praying for the news? Yeah.
Well, I think Trump is a unique figure. I think we'll regulate social media in the future. A lot of this stuff is astroturf, so it gets to the top. The truth doesn't go viral nowadays. I never thought he died, though. I just thought maybe he had a stroke and they're kind of hiding it from us or something like that. And I still think something like that might be the case, because it is very uncharacteristic for him to be out of the press's spotlight for a week. I mean, what is happening? What's going on?
Meanwhile, Giuliani gets in a fucking crash and breaks his back.
Oh,
Something's going on.
No, that story was crazy though, because he was saying
his
that,
initial story. Yeah, tell him about it.
well, I don't know. There was a follow-up. Like the initial story was that he witnessed some domestic violence, and so he.
Oh,
Yes, you guys speak to it, because I don't.
I read
it's
about
like
it.
Weird. Yeah, their official statement was like he witnessed a victim of domestic violence, like waited around
On
for
the side
police
of
to
the road.
come. Oh, on the side of the road.
Yeah, he pulled over. He was a passenger in a car. Supposedly, he pulled over, seeing some sort of domestic dispute, and he settled it like a hero. Got back in his car, and somebody rear-ended him, and his car and that car went into the medium. There were no charges filed. So I don't know. Maybe he was smacking some girl around on the side of the road, and his car got hit.
Hold
you think
on.
maybe Rudy was smacking someone, and he's
Yeah.
like the cause.
He's a
of
creep.
the
Remember, he's
domestic-
playing pocket pool in that one movie or whatever with the young chick in the room.
Borat 2?
Yeah.
Borat 2,
Oh,
subsequent
boy.
movie film.
That was
yeah.
crazy. Well, sorry, I know this is bad etiquette, but like I'm getting a little stun locked in chat here because I said that the country was hyper polarized, and then somebody said Hutch the centrist, always willing to move further right. What the fuck are you?
That's a
what are you
literal
talking
troll.
about?
That's a literal troll.
No, but there
Bait.
was another.
That's bait, bro.
What are we talking about? It might not be
bait,
bait.
bro.
I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but that might not be bait.
You're an extreme right. What did Taylor call you? An extreme right winger?
Oh my god.
Zionist?
Okay,
so-
wait. She clarified. She confused Hutch with someone who's a lot more.
Soy Pill, you really like this Taylor Lorenz reporter, huh?
I like.
You fancy her.
I don't like.
Wow, you should.
Burning
Have you
the
disclosed
bridge.
that, Soy
I'll say
Pill?
that.
I don't
Have
think
you
you disclosed
disclosed
that.
that?
I will
You-
disclose that Taylor Lorenz is giving me her time sometimes, which is like giving me money, which means I am like being funded by Taylor Lorenz.
Well,
I'll say
I
that.
will say there are some articles of Taylor Lorenz that I genuinely like, and
Yeah.
some videos of hers that I think are valuable. Just like, by the
Yeah.
way, I hate to say it, but sometimes I find a Greenwald article or a Greenwald video that I like, and so I don't think that there's nothing valuable she's ever said. I just think she fucking hates Democrats. It's a fucking hit piece, and I fucking want to ask her some questions about it. But you seem like you have a real soft spot for her.
She.
I just don't like being mean to her as much as I could be.
So
She did an
you guys give him
interview-
some shit, please.
She did an interview with Libs of TikTok, which, like, again, I'm not a big Taylor Lorenz guy, but that interview was fucking brilliant. Like, it was really well done. And she exposed Libs of TikTok for being a completely vapid lunatic. I thought, yeah, that was like a really professional. You could tell she went in with like a game plan and she executed on it. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, her reporting and her sort of like what she puts out there has not been all bad, but somebody I guess called me a Hasbarist, which I guess, you know, if you guys don't know what that means, it means someone who does
we
like
know,
is
we know.
Israeli propaganda. People in whoever's chat might not know what that is, and so like I guess
Hutch, are you a
somebody-
Zionist?
I have never called myself a Zionist. If
That's
it's
not
like,
what I asked. Are
do
you?
what are we defining as Zionist? Is it like two-state solution? Then I'm a Zionist. Is it someone who like believes that
You believe that the Jewish homeland that should have a state?
I gave this like
The Jewish
long
state.
reply. She kept on
Yeah,
asking
I
me.
saw
She's like,
your
"Are you
reply
a
was
Zionist?"
really good, Hutch. I retweeted that. I was like, this is pretty much my position on it. If you call this a Zionist, like, what the fuck is the threshold then? Like,
Well, it's just like that word like can mean so many different things to so many different people. Because if you ask like a bunch of like people in like lefty spaces what Zionist means, it means they're like an ultra defender of Israel. ContraPoint said it could just mean somebody who believes in a two-state solution. The original version of the word was about the idea that Jewish people should have their own country in their ancestral homeland of like then British Mandate Palestine. But you know, the way that I see it, it's like it's not about like is it ideal to have something like a state or a country that is sort of like defined by a religion or an ethnicity? I don't think so. Like I believe in like secular liberal democracy, but in the context of like 1948, everybody in all of our chats would have gotten on that fucking boat leaving Europe in 1948 if you had people telling you like you can go there and like have your own country. And none of that makes like what happened to Palestinians okay. So it's like a really complicated thing. I don't know if we wanted to get like sidetracked by this, but
yeah. And also, it's my turn to really quickly get triggered by chat before we move on from Taylor Lorenz. People are like, "Oh, you give Taylor a pass, but not Tolly." To be clear, the reason I even have Taylor Lorenz's number is because I tried to do a podcast with her where I was like, "All right, I'll treat you a lot nicer than I treated Tim Pool," but the entirety of this podcast is me saying, "I think you're insane for calling Democrats eugenicist, and your COVID takes are fucking wild, and your video was completely unhinged." And then she like got really upset at me because I used the word hypochondriac. That's apparently her trigger word. Like my eugenicist is mine. And then past that, I'm like, well, I don't like making people cry or be upset, so I'm gonna try my best not to completely burn this bridge with this person who has an incredibly large audience, who is not mean to me.
So
that
was
is a
like,
completely
"You're
different
cute,
story.
but I hate your COVID takes." Listen, we all know
Look,
what was going on. In those private
what you
DMs,
got to
right?
know is I hate white
Did you
women.
say
and
cute?
You can take that one.
You
to
hate
the
white
bank.
women?
Whoa, video game. Oh, Jesus
Racist.
Christ.
Racism. TOS.
I don't know if you guys saw, but there's a potential executive order coming from Trump that's very abundance pilled. Did you see this?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, dude. He's talking about declaring a housing emergency to basically do a massive deregulatory agenda through executive order to incentivize the production of houses.
See,
For the
this is the
development of houses.
problem
Yeah.
because I think that there's people take from the abundance book or whatever, the narrative, the abundance bill, people that just blanket deregulation is a good idea. And I think that this, if he's just massively deregulating, I don't trust him to not just be trying to give handouts to a bunch of his construction business friends or whoever they are. And
Yeah, same.
maybe they build in like fucking super unsafe housing or super, I don't fucking know, but whatever it is, I don't trust the abundance framework in the hands of fucking Trump. And that's one of the criticisms of it, is that it's in line with some of these teal lights and individuals who want to, fracture up America and make little regulation-free zones for themselves. And so that is concerning for me.
I don't think federal regulation is what's holding up our housing supply. So it seems like window dressing to me. His deportation policy and tariffs are going to cause more grief
100%.
than any good he's
100%.
going to do with an executive order on federal regulation.
Yeah, true.
Can we dive into that a little bit? Like how much
Yes.
of the obstacles to real estate development come from like local and state regulation versus federal regulation?
I
I
don't
think
know if I
one of
could
the-
put a number on it. Maybe Pisco has done research there, but I have a feeling
I-
it's like 80% is state and local.
I've done one real estate litigation in my career, and let me just tell you, the kind of local, this is New York, granted, and New York is its own beast and is certainly not representative, I think, of the rest of the country. But the level of like local regulation and stuff and civil ordinances and all that shit is beyond the pale. And my prior is that a lot of it has to do with zoning anyway, and I very much doubt that President Trump is going to be effectively able to executive order his way around zoning regulations in a calibrated and smart approach. And to the extent that there are federal regulations, I think a lot of them are good, right? Like a lot of these federal, like equal access type regulations, and you laugh, but some of the environmental, I'm not saying you guys laugh, the environmental regulations are here to make alligator Alcatraz illegal currently, and the current litigation over it is about environmental regulation. And so to the extent that there's federal regulation, I think a lot of it makes sense. And so I just don't trust this administration to like, quote, massively deregulate in the name of housing. And I wouldn't trust their policy agenda there if for any reason they have a scarcity mindset when it comes to the supply of workers for housing and the supply of inputs for housing, like I mentioned, which I think are probably more significant contributors.
If he could, like, I don't know enough about federal versus state and local regulation, how much impact that has on development. But if he did do an executive order and it did incentivize a lot of real estate development and that did drive the cost of housing down, I would be extremely worried going into 2026 and 2028. I mean, these things would probably take years before they would like manifest or whatever. But it's interesting that they're going down that road. That wasn't the only abundance talk this weekend either, because the Mexican president, who I think is a leftist, right? Soypel, why don't you speak about that? Because you're nodding your head there.
I just had heard about this. I don't know the exact mechanisms of what she's implementing, but apparently she's taking funds that are coming from corporations that have government stake in them and using it to build more and do like an abundance agenda. But I don't know if you could. People are criticizing the one-to-one comparison because it's like, hey, this is taking stuff almost in like a socialist manner from corporations, not just, hey, the government's doing a pull funding sort of thing and trying to get rid of these regulations to build more, but rather this is like a central control sort of thing. So I don't know if you can call it the same thing as what Abundance advocates for. And as someone who literally just finished Abundance this weekend, I don't know if I fully understand exactly what they're advocating for, other than just kind of the vagaries of it. Just, hey, we should regulate less, but not too less. Kind of they go with this whole, like, we need pilot programs to say, hey, give incentives to people to, not have to do all this paperwork, to not do these regulations, to not have these check-ins. And if it works
And they're
out,
upfront about that, at least.
Yeah.
Soipel, they're not making a policy platform, and they explicitly state that in their work here. So I'm not here. I'm an enjoyer of the book. I'm not here that's a massive critic of it, but there are big red flags that I have when people. I'm not saying that Hutch did this. I think he's just reading the news. When people cite it in with respect to what Trump is doing, because I don't think that Trump has a scarcity mindset, an abundance mindset. I think he has a scarcity mindset and a corruption mindset, and he might, repurpose some of the thoughts and feelings of what's in abundance for his own corrupt and bad ends.
All right, what would you like if you were Trump right now? Like, let me put this a different way. As someone who's invested in the Republicans losing power in 2026, what could be one thing that Trump could do right now that would make you nervous that they would actually have a strong midterm performance?
Drop his tariffs. I mean, the best thing that could happen for him is the Supreme Court shoots down his tariffs, because that's just going to kneecap him. But he's not going to do it. So I don't know if there's anything Trump can do that could have an immediate impact, because it'd have to bring down the cost of housing, which there's no magic pill for that. I mean, the tariffs are also putting pressure on the Federal Reserve to not drop interest rates. And a lot of people are holding on to their existing mortgages because they're 3-4%. And, you're not going to get anywhere near that anytime soon. So I don't know. I mean, there's not much he can do. He's really set himself up for failure next year with his economic policies.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about it yet, but last week, I think last Tuesday, there was a pretty significant race that happened in Iowa. There was the Iowa state legislature. The Republicans have a supermajority, and Democratic candidate I can't remember what district it was. Maybe Iowa's like 9th district or something like that. She won a race and unseated the Republican, took away their supermajority, and shifted away from Trump's margin in 2024 by 21 points. And averaged across all special elections since November, the Democrats, according to at least as of June, I don't know if those numbers have improved or gotten worse, but as of June, the Democrats were averaging a 13.4 point shift away from Trump towards them. So I think people have a right to be nervous about Democratic Party approval ratings right now. They are abysmal. Registration really sucks right now, and we're struggling to raise funds. However, these kinds of shifts in special elections are predictive of midterm performance. And right now, what we're seeing from Democrats in terms of overperformance relative to Trump's margins in November, these are historic margins by recent history standards.
Yeah, I just want to say the registration numbers go back to 2020. So that's like 2020 through 24. And yeah, we had a geriatric candidate and we had Kamala. So I get why the Republicans had more people registering. I think that's going to change very quickly here. But you're right. There's a huge shift. And my response to the people who say Democrats approval ratings in the gutter, how do you account for that? I say, well, look at the special elections. We've been winning. Those are real results. And those are the same polls that told us Kamala was going to win Iowa by 4 points in November. So now you believe the polls. So I look at the special election results. We've been kicking ass right and left in those, and we're going to continue to do so. So I think things are just fine.
Pisco Soy Pill, how are you feeling about 2026?
I'm not going to use this Iowa as like an indication that nothing should change. If anything, I should, they always say, play like you're 50 points behind. We're not in power. I think that Gavin Newsom very accurately coming out and saying, hey, there might not be midterms. There might not be 2028. Is it a huge likelihood, 60%? Maybe not. I think we should treat this like this could be the last election, and we should pretend like we're 50 points behind. We should be going out, organizing, registering people to vote, constantly talking about how bad these tariffs are, how bad these policies are, and not be worried about like, oh, well, maybe the Democrats don't have to change. Let's pretend like we do, because it's fucking scary.
I'm pretty optimistic about the 2026 midterms. I think that there are things that Trump could try to do to mess with them, but I don't think that they're likely to be effective. Doesn't mean we shouldn't worry about them. Doesn't mean that they won't try. I think people should be aware, and I think it's good that Gavin Newsom and other governors, frankly, like Pritzker today, I took a look during my stream at what Pritzker's saying about the National Guard deployment and potential ramifications on democracy. I think that these are all very important things to worry about. But I'm more optimistic, I think, than the average like doomer-pilled lib about his prospects of actually succeeding at fucking with the election in 2026. And I think if Democrats are able to snatch the House, that's humongous. And so yeah, that's my position.
Yeah,
Well, go ahead and go ahead.
Can we talk about the ability to fuck with, by the way? Because they want to ban mail-in voting. They're talking about executive order voter ID. They're putting ICE at polling stations, and like all of those individually like are going to have massive bad effects on Democratic voter turnout. And to be clear on the ICE one, I'm not saying illegal immigrants vote. I'm saying that if you put that there and you have people who have undocumented family, they're going to have a chilling effect, worried about whether or not that's going to identify their families at these polling stations. Mail-in voting, I think 30% of people do it now, or 30% of voters or something crazy.
Yes.
So if you're banning that, like that's going to get rid of a whole huge swath of people.
You can't ban it though.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to ban it. I think
Hopefully
even some of
not.
these deployments.
He's going to depress turnout for his own base with
Yeah,
mail-in voting by attacking it. Like that's all he's going to do with that. But I'm not worried. I understand your concerns, Soy Pill, but it's going to be too big to rig, man. People are going to be pissed with the one big beautiful bill's impact and the tariffs and the federal workers being laid off, and we're going to have a government shutdown, guys, at the end of this month. So like the shit's about to get real bad, and I think people are going to take it out on the Republicans next year.
I fucking love your optimism, by the way.
Yeah, I hope so. Like you're
unironically.
pilling me. You're injecting hopium directly into me. All right.
Well, I think that he's right about if he starts attacking mail-in voting again, like he did in 2020, I think that they could have some issues in terms of banking in a bunch of votes before the election, which they were able to effectively do in 2024 because they totally shifted their strategy, and you really saw that. In addition, I don't think legally he's going to be able to do this, and I think the courts are going to stand up to him on that front. I do think that they'll be effective in preventing, for example, an all-right mail-in voting ban. I think even certain state courts from potentially redder states will stand up to that. And I think that it'll be a bunch of pressure and may even provoke Democrats to come out in greater numbers. I'm not so sure they're going to be cowed by the notion of ICE being there. I think that there'll be widespread knowledge of that, and to the extent that it depresses in-person voting, again, I think that's to the Democrats' advantage. And in terms of like him literally stuffing ballots, I think that prospect, just like in general, I thought it was unlikely for Biden to be able to do in 2020 and the Democrats to win the election in 2020 for the same kind of reasons. I think structurally it would be difficult for Trump to do it in 2024.
The voter ID stuff is funny because we've had this kind of like what do we call it? Like we've had sort of like a demographic realignment along educational lines. And so now if they actually did do voter ID, there's actually a compelling argument to make that it would benefit Democrats because we're tending to be more educated, higher income, and you're going to be more likely to have a ID. I don't know. I've seen some.
But it's like, what was the bill they passed recently? Was it the SAVE Act? I don't remember, but there was an exception in there that if you didn't have ID, you could submit a ballot anyways with whatever it's called. I forgot
Provisional.
the term, but yeah, provisional ballot. So it's not as bad as people make it out to be, and I don't think it's the end of the world to have ID.
Well, it's not about the end of the world. It's about if you look at the history of how they've tried to implement this, it's never like they do in Germany, where you do need an ID in Germany. And this is like literally the first thing I ever made a video on, so I'm kind of passionate about it. But this idea that like ID is bad is not really what Democrats are saying. I know you're not saying this. It's that, hey, if you're going to implement ID and you're not making it free and easy and widespread like they do in Europe, then you're preventing people who are lower income or don't have a good access to the DMV from voting. And specifically, they'll do it in ways like in South Carolina, where they're just like, hey, it looks like you surgically targeted black people and specifically chose IDs they didn't have so they wouldn't vote. So there needs to be like universal ID if you're going to pass it, and that's not what they want. They want to suppress Democratic voter turnout. So
all right, we'll go ahead and wrap up soon. I want to close with one topic. Soypel, would you do me a favor and go to the guy? His name's Graham Plattner on Twitter. He's the Senate candidate in Maine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, I want to have a conversation about populism and about how it might just be necessary in this moment, even though I personally fucking hate it. But I wanted to show you he gave a speech recently, and it kind of gives you a sample of his kind of rhetoric. If you wanted
to me on the Discord chat, there's several things here. Because right now I've got a guy playing guitar on his Twitter, so I don't want to show that to everyone.
Yeah, I guess the question I want to ask you guys is, do you think that the Democratic Party needs to adopt really explicitly populist rhetoric in order to win in 2026?
I don't think it's a but for. I think it'll help. Like I don't think it's
Well-
necessary. It's strictly speaking necessary, but I think it'll help to appeal to the common man and to try to do this kind of populist rhetoric. I think that the country, for better or worse, is in that kind of mood, and I think a lot of the successful politicians who've been able to buck some of even Newsom to some extent has pushed on this rhetoric.
If you scroll down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
keep going. There, right there.
This one? All right, we're playing
Yeah.
this?
We need to bring the Democratic Party back to the party it was supposed to be. It is supposed to be a party of working people. It is supposed to be a party of unions. It is supposed to be a party of community organizations. It is supposed to be a party that fights for the downtrodden and the exploited. It is not supposed to be a party that supports the corporate interests that have always supported the Republican Party. The Democratic Party of today needs to change, but we need to change it. Nobody is coming down from on high to save us. We have to do this work ourselves.
Wow. That
He
was,
likes-
the energy versus the music was not matching.
It was very mismatched. Yeah,
Oh,
like cutting to the crowd and it's like 50 people is another kind of funny
50
thing. But,
old
like,
people.
Who cares? You guys are haters.
No,
I think
no,
it's
no, no,
fine. It's platitudes that we're all familiar with. Kind of this shit is like some of the shit Obama said. So I have no problem with this.
No, here's what I was gonna say. I was like, I normally like really fucking hate this kind of rhetoric. I think populism makes people stupider. I'm just deeply distrustful of it. But that guy feels like he was built in a laboratory for this moment.
For
you know,
Mainers.
like I've kind of like accepted the fact that people like him might stand the best chance of beating someone like Susan Collins in Maine. And so, I might hate the rhetoric, but I respect that it might be necessary right now. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask. Like, Soypill, what do you guys think? Like, are you okay with people shitting on the Democratic Party and, doing that whole like reductivist sort of populist rhetoric that we see from people like Cenk, if it means a better chance of winning those seats?
I think you got to be careful with it, right? Like I said, I think I mentioned, you can tell that Ro Khanna's doing this, and even Gavin Newsom's probably going to try it, where they're going to move away or distance themselves from the Democrats of the past while still maintaining the same Democratic platform, just by saying, hey, we need to focus on the economy. We haven't been doing that. We need to focus on the worker. And you can call that populist, but the policy itself isn't doing some weird like brain rotty thing. It's just, I'm changing the rhetoric that makes it appeals to more people. That is what it sounds like. It's more of a rhetorical change than a policy change, but I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of populism. I think it undermines public trust in institutions and leads people to support an authoritarian figure. But he's running in Maine. Maine is kind of a independent place, right? They literally have an independent senator, and there's Jared Golden there, who's one of our more conservative Democrats. And so I think you do have to kind of take this position in a race like that, hey, I'm not part of that old Democratic Party. I'm independent, and I'm fighting for you. So I don't have a problem with people taking certain positions in certain races. It's kind of like Mamdani, which I know is a favorite topic around these parts. Mamdani is running for mayor of New York City. So he's going to say certain things that work in a race like that may not work in a state like Maine. So whatever this guy has to say to win, I'm all for it.
Well, he's
Wait,
already
do you endorse Mamdani? Yes or no? Yes or no?
I think he's the best candidate out of the options, and I think he'll make a great mayor.
That's a correct answer. There you go. I mean, speaking of Mamdani, I feel like we're seeing him pivot a little bit towards the center now that he's like moving towards the general. There was a clip of him this last week that was circulating, putting some distance between himself and DSA. I saw some DSA members on the timeline that were pretty pissed off about that. But do you guys think that that's the right move? Do you like seeing him do that?
I don't really give a shit. I think he's gonna win. Say what you need to do to win in this respect. He strikes me as someone who's much more principled, and there are some things that I would substantively want him to moderate on, including some of the rent-free stuff in terms of expanding it. So there's some stuff. Yeah.
By the way, Hutch, I'm not sure this guy's going to be the nominee, this Graham guy. He's one of the first out the door, but I have a feeling there's going to be some other names that get into the race that might actually end up with the nomination in the end.
Maybe he's just, he's the first to throw his hat in the ring, and he is just really, I think, like properly coded for demographics like in Maine. Like he's just very kind of conventionally masculine. He's got this deep fucking voice, like he's ex-military, and he's running as a Democrat. And so like I feel like there's a lot of like potent sort of messaging there from him specifically.
Well, I'll just say I think there's a lot of flavors to the Democratic Party, and I like to see all of them run their own independent races and do whatever they got to do to win. That's why I'm fine with people like Mamdani and people further to the left of me, and even people more conservative like Jared Golden. You do what you got to do to win.
I don't like Jared Golden. I think that he's a little bit of a fucker. But
you mentioned distancing themselves from the DSA, and I saw that recently the DSA has an official platform policy of dismantling USAID. Is that true?
What the fuck? Wait, really?
The DSA or the
DSA?
DSA is nuts. So I don't know.
that was wild to me because I'm like, everyone's always like, hey, soy pill, like go help with the DSA, canvass with the DSA, and I'm like, look, if you're gonna be that brain rotty populist, I can't help you out. Like USAID is great, and like you're literally aligned with the Trump admin if you wanted to get rid of that. So.
What did you say? So did the DSA adopt USAID?
I said he's a fucker.
Uncuts. They just had their Yes, they did. Yes, the U.S. government has significantly. Wait, no, that's not it. Yeah, I don't know about that, but the U.S.
It might have been fake news. I just saw it some screenshot somewhere. So
I mean, it makes sense because like soft power would be like a mechanism of imperialism, I suppose. Maybe that's why they would. I mean, they just had a vote on their platform recently where it was like a narrow vote. It was like 56 to 44, adopting anti-Zionism as a part of their platform. I was actually kind of shocked that it was almost 50-50. I thought it would have been like overwhelmingly in support of that measure, but that was pretty controversial.
Right here, DSA.org, abolish USAID, Voice of America, NED. I disavow DSA. Get this bullet point off your.
Well, it says
here's a cool trick. Watch this. Inspect element. Bam. Delete it. It's gone.
Well, wait. Look at their reasoning. It had their reasoning there.
What was the reasoning?
It was because
it's a cynically disguised capitalist control as aid in journalism. Yeah.
Oh,
cool. yeah. It's like the starving African child, and the banana is about to reach his mouth, and he's like, "This is capitalism. Get in the way."
That's so cringe right there. Oh my god! Like you're saving lives, man. Like get out of here.
All right, boys. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. What do you got going on this week? IRI, you go first.
I don't have anything going on this week, but thank you for giving me an opportunity to promote something. No, nothing for me. Nothing exciting.
Well,
just debating on TikTok. Just
that's
taking
something.
on MAGA.
Just baiting.
Mm-hmm.
Pisco, what's up? What are you doing?
In about an hour, less than an hour, 9:30. I'm going to talk with Ryan Mullally about some legal shit, and I think I'm talking to Drew Pavlou again this week. So stay tuned for that.
What are you talking to Drew about?
Immigration shit, probably.
He's been. Is he a liberal? I see him post some really nasty kind of Indian, anti-Chinese stuff. It's kind of weird.
He's kind of like had a conversation with Richard Spencer. Has never been the same.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil, you're doing some panel. Are you?
Yeah, tomorrow. I guess
panel,
I'm
right?
doing a debate. I thought Hutch, you were going to do it too. I saw you reached out. You said put me in, coach. But apparently, there's certain banned streamers you can't stream with on it.
Can't co-stream with banned people. So
why don't you just do YouTube exclusive?
He really pushed you.
Well, they already replaced me with Z. I think she's going to go on there.
Oh, Z's coming on. Cool. I'll talk to her then. But and then it sounds like I'll reach out to Wick, and you should do it with us on Thursday.
If he does a panel, if Wick does a panel on Thursday, I'm in for sure.
But I do have to promote. I'm doing a Cars for Ukraine fundraiser. So if you like cars and you like Ukraine, there's a fundraiser in all of my YouTube description boxes, and also for the Unfuck America tour, which I'm now affiliated with, and they're not paying me, despite me wanting them to pay me. They are not paying me, but I would disclose it if they were. So,
wait, so are you going to events with them? What are you doing with them?
Not if no one gives me money, because I can't pay $900 every time we got to fly out and yell at Charlie Kirk. Although I'd pay $200 to yell at Charlie Kirk. So
what are you doing with them?
Well, I'm trying to get the fundraising. If you donate, it goes to being able to fund creators like me and other creators to fly out. It's part of this the fund, like to go and canvass, register people to vote, argue with Charlie Kirk, that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. All right. Yep. I stream. I'm going to be streaming this week. The regular hours I'm starting a little bit earlier, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. And I usually go until like 2:30 p.m. Pacific. And that's going to be Sunday through Friday. And I don't know if I have anything else going on this week, but yeah, Good talking to you, boys.
Thank you, boys. Stay cool. See you
Enjoy the
next
rest of
week.
the week.